Hey guys, so this video is going to be a little bit different. So, I talked a few weeks ago about how I was putting together a somewhat larger project, and this is the somewhat larger project. So, I've been brainstorming guns, concepts, mobs, things like that I would like to see in Hunt, which I'm going to put into this video. We're probably going to get a part 2 because one of my friends makes art, and he had wanted me to include some of his art that he has been drawing for some skins, which next video will probably be like legendaries, variants, stuff like that I want to see in the game. So we're gonna start with new weapons. So first up we have the Massachusetts Arms Maynard Carbine, which was a weapon made in the Civil War. Over 20,000 of them were produced, and I think it could have a somewhat interesting place in Hunt. It fires a 50 caliber cartridge, which I don't think I need to explain why that would be significant. It also came in a .52 caliber, but those were rarer. So it was a breech-loading weapon, kind of like the Martini or the Sparks. Actually, the Martini is lever action, but... So, it would most likely be one of those super high-damage single-shot rifles that you take when you're running a trio, so you can tap them once, they get, like, no health left, and your team can just kind of poke them and they die. However, I think the thing that could set it apart is the fact that, A, it fires a 50 caliber cartridge, which would slap, and it also, for the time, was a relatively quick reloading weapon. It would probably reload about as fast as, say, the Romero. And I could see a few variants being like there'd be like a sniper variant or some kind of Deadeye some scoped variant. Maybe a riposte, because I love the riposte variant of the Martini Henry. I think it's one of the nicest melee variants. So all that stuff could be kind of interesting. There were two different versions. One was made in 1858. The other was the 1860 variant. They were given to the troops of the U.S. Marines during the Civil War. And they were also highly acclaimed by the Confederate Army. So I think it could be a pretty interesting addition. I also picked it because it's from Massachusetts, and that's where I grew up, so I have a personal bias for it. So, yeah. Next up is the trench gun, which needs absolutely zero introduction. It's known as the Model 1897 shotgun, or, the trench gun. It was a pump-action shotgun with an external hammer and tube mag. It would work similarly to the Spectre, most likely. I think the best way to differentiate the two would be to make the trench gun shorter range, higher fire rate, and the Spectre give it a little boost to longer ranged fire. Because, we need some longer range shotguns, because why not? And my best guess would be, 1, this gives Iron Devastator a purpose other than the Spectre. And 2, you can maybe add a perk which would be only usable on this weapon called Flamefire, which would work essentially the same as levering or fanning. But I think this weapon, A, it's mostly time period accurate. Yes, it wasn't released until 1897, but the weapon that the Crown and King Auto 5 is based on, the Browning Auto 5, was not made until 1898, so they would both be not time period accurate, but I think since we already have that, why not add another iconic shotgun? So, this is a gun. It's about the only good thing I can say about it. It's a shit rifle. It really is. It's a bolt-action rifle made in 1841. Now, I recognize we already have something that kind of takes its place in the carabiner. However, I think having another kind of shitty... And I'm not saying that the carabiner is a shit weapon. It's a great gun. But I feel like we need another cheap bolt action because we already have so many, like, lever action rifles. And we have so many Mosin variants. Like, Why, Crytek? Why? Back to the point, though. This weapon is shit. It was actually kind of revolutionary, considering it was one of the first bolt-action rifles that used the needle firing pin. And it was... It worked. It did work. It just wasn't good. It could fire 6 rounds a minute. Like, I mean... It was a bolt-action breech load, essentially. It was weird. And, I mean, I think I just need to read the limitations from the Wikipedia page to really tell you how shitty this weapon is. The spring that drove the needle was delicate. When the needle was dirty, the rifle tended to misfire. Colonel Hawker considered that a new needle was required every 12 shots. When the gun was heated and foul, operating the bolt required a lot of strength. The barrel tended to wear at the junction with the cylinder. The escape of gas at the breech got worse as firing continued. Its effective range was 600 meters. The placement of the primer directly behind the bullet meant that firing the needle was enclosed in black powder when the gun was fired, causing the pin to stress, which would break over time and render the rifle useless. Soldiers were provided 2 replacement needles. The needles could be replaced easily in under 30 seconds. Because the rifle was black powder, residue accumulated at the back of the barrel, making cleaning necessary after 60 to 80 shots. It would burn the user after a certain amount of shots, between 60 and 80. Yeah, it's not good. But I think we need another cheap bolt-action rifle. Give it a marksman variant, maybe a Talon. I know Talons are shit, but I think another cheap bolt-action rifle could be interesting. It's not even really bolt-action. It's a breech reload weapon that you open the bolt, put the bullet in, and close. But it would make it a fast-firing, breech-loading weapon that would probably not deal as much damage, something similar to, like, the Martini. But, yeah. And with a German bolt-action rifle, why not a German revolver? This one is a single-action, 6-round service revolver used by the German military. It was made in 1883. It was the standard issue sidearm for the Imperial Army until 1908 when it's replaced by the Luger. And it was supposedly a pretty okay weapon. It shot 10.6 by 25 millimeter. Apparently the handle was very ergonomic, which in my opinion could make it have a faster draw time, but you know, that's always a contentious subject of should weapons have faster draw times or not. And apparently, it was a pretty easy weapon to reload. It also had a lanyard ring, which was used to attach it to the uniform, but I think it could be a nice another revolver since we already have an American and a Russian one. Although, as much as I would love something like the, what's it called? Like a break action revolver, I think another, like, revolver like the Nagant could be interesting. Maybe give it a, claw variant or something like that to give it a little bit of a niche along with the PAX, which is just the single action army. We all know it. We love the PAX. We stand the PAX. But yeah, it's a pretty okay weapon. It's you know, it's a nice sidearm made by Germany. It's made by Germany. But, yeah, it was apparently a pretty lightweight shot that shot 10.6, so somewhere in between the, like, 45 and 9 millimeter. So, you know, I think it'd be a pretty niche weapon, but it would be cool. Alright, let me be very clear with this one. I do not want a handheld Gatling gun in Hunt. That is not my intention with this. What I want is a map weapon. Something like in Battlefield 1, where you'd come across, like, a pre-made anti-tank gun. Something like that. And this one would be a Gatling gun. Probably scattered in military areas, something like a fort or a battery. So that we could have choke points. They would be area denial things, which I think could be really interesting. I understand fully automatic weapons are already very contentious in the community. Just look at the Optimon. But I think something like this could be interesting. Yes, it would probably be OP as shit. I recognize that. But I think having a time-accurate, fully automatic area denial weapon, and B, an iconic symbol of the West, would be a pretty okay thing to add. Now, I recognize there would be no variants or anything like that. It would just be Gatling gun on wheels that just kind of sits there in, like, a certain spot on the map, like on top of fort or in like the sandbags at Maw. But I do think something like this could be interesting. Now, I do recognize that this would be extremely controversial if they added it. And I'm okay with that. Controversial things tend to be some of the best stuff added to games. Like, you know, I think it could be interesting. But I also recognize why this will probably never be added. And that is going to be the end of this one. I'm going to have 2 other videos coming out that are basically going to be part 2s and 3s. So next video is going to be ideas that I would like to see in the game, and I can give you a small sneak peek of that. And then part 3 is going to be mobs, so new enemies. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and here's the preview for the next one. Now don't shoot me, but spreading fire.